excess. So that would give you the basis of what it should be like, and also the idea in the beginning of why it's not the exact thing, right? So that's not a bad thing to say, spherical triangle, because then you're not confused. You don't think, oh, triangle, because now you know the difference between the two. It is triangular-esque, you
I
know.
can call it Spangle. I'm gonna call it Spangle.
Yeah, but
I
it's
mean,
describe
you already
it
have a
as a
word for it, though. It does exist, and it's not new to a lot of people. They've already coined the term spherical triangle, so we'll just use that for now.
I hear you,
Yeah,
Grim.
sounds
They
good to
can
me.
call it what they want. Okay, let's just say that, right?
And they
You wanna know
do,
what
Thing
you
and
is,
they
want?
will.
they say it's when they explain what it is, they say it's a triangle with more than 180 degrees. That's where the beef comes in.
That's your
Yeah,
That's
and
why
I
it's not
think,
called a
and I
triangle.
think,
That's
yeah, but I think
why
we're
it's
being
not called.
pedantic, right? Because we know
Let's
that
move on. Let's
yeah, the
move on
direct,
from this, please. Let's move on.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
you know what I wanted to ask? The reason I came in, Moyak, the illusionary wind. Have you had some
Yes,
more
I like
thoughts on that?
I like that term. Do I still have the picture handy? I'll show you what I mean by illusionary wind. I might have
Check
the
this
numbers
out,
all
Grim.
backwards. I'm
I'm
a
waiting.
little
I'm
bit
on the edge of my seat right now.
copy.
And after that, if anyone wants to know why I think Peter Pan was a child abductor and Captain Hook was a good guy, ask me.
All right, illusionary wind. Here is my little image. What I have is an Earth, and there's a plane that's flying north. And I want to know whether this apparent wind that they're feeling, this pattern where we notice a 2 mile an hour crosswind, is real or a fictitious force. So what I do is I take a balloon at each one of these locations and I fly it up there. And on the left-hand side of the table, you see that I have that one place it's 0 miles an hour, then 90, 100, 130, 115, 122. Those are the speeds the balloons are flying at 120,000 feet. No, sorry, at 30,000 feet. Now, my airplane, as I'm flying along that same path, right next to the balloons, the wingtips are touching those balloons as it goes by. And I notice that I have to keep the wheel on that airplane turned to counter a 2 mile an hour force that is apparent there. So I am countering at the bottom one, I'm countering a 2 mile an hour wind. The next one at 88 mile per hour wind, and 102, 128, 13, and 124 mile an hour. So now I know the wind isn't going that fast because I have my balloons up there measuring the speed, and my airplane is seeing a wind. That's what I call an illusionary wind.
So let me get this straight. I want to be perfectly clear. This illusionary wind is not affecting the balloons that are almost at the tip of your plane, like you said, but it is affecting the plane?
Yes. That's your angular momentum and of your airplane that you have to counteract.
Oh, yeah.
You're agreeing with him, Grim?
I like apparent
Yeah.
wind as a term. That's
Well,
a bit
I mean,
better.
and not the fact that it's actually happening, but in the probability of it making sense to me.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
but let's
Conceptually.
picture
Like, I can't
reality.
say that I know for a fact, but I can say, oh, I
physically
see
do
how
this.
it makes sense to me. Yeah.
How, Grim? How can you see a wind affecting a balloon and not a plane, bro?
Well, because the plane is what's moving, and the plane it's not really a wind in the sense that it can be perceived. There is an effect of wind from the motion. So, I mean, it's kind of complicated, but then it's not at the same time. I mean, to explain it or to see it in your mind is different, you know. But like how do you explain it? And that changes with latitude on your great circle, right?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. I used a
All right,
round
so
number.
that's why I understand it. Okay. So I don't even know how to explain it, but I just feel like it fits. You know what I mean?
Or
Yeah,
maybe
my
the
numbers
wind
could
is
be
only
exactly
strong enough to
backwards.
affect the balloon, but not the plane. That doesn't mean that it's illusionary. That means that it has a real effect on the balloon, just not the plane, since it's not powerful enough.
So you're on board with this too, Lemon?
It's a real wind that affects the balloon, not the plane. It's not strong enough to affect the plane. It would need to pick up
No,
a bit
actually, it's the other way
more
around. The
more
He's
plane
the
power
would
to
affect
affect
opposite.
the plane.
Yeah, Lemon's thinking the opposite of what we're thinking, I think. Am I right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. The balloon
it's
was
Because
a-
in
all
my
I'm hearing
reference
is
to how
something about
fast
an illusionary wind, like it's like some sort of fictitious force or something. Doesn't make any
Yes,
sense.
that's why
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying
It's
this. And
exactly
this
what
is
it is.
only if this is true. It's just proof or just conceptual right now. But if I took these measurements with the balloon would be how fast the air is actually moving. We know how fast the air is moving. If the plane is having to counteract 2 miles an hour greater than that, then the plane is actually getting affected more than the balloon. So what's causing that plane to drift 2 miles an hour in one direction above and beyond the speed of the wind? And it
And not the
reverses when you come
balloons.
down the other direction.
And not the balloons, Moyak, man. That's pretty tall order there, buddy.
Yeah,
Well, the
normally
balloon's
if
not
something can
moving.
affect a bigger and more massive plane, it would affect the balloon, one would assume.
Well, no,
Absolutely.
the balloons
So
aren't
your thought
moving
experiment
around
is hard to
an arc.
follow because it's asking us to think inconsistently in a way that
But
doesn't
the
quite make
balloons are
sense.
part of the wind. Balloons are in the wind.
And so's the
Planes flying
plane.
through the wind.
So if something can blow the more massive, heavier plane, one would assume it would blow the balloon as well.
Exactly.
So why
Exactly.
are we being asked to go the opposite of normal thinking? Why are we being asked
The,
to think that it would
the
affect
Because
the
balloons
that's what
aren't
plane,
we're.
but not
traveling.
the balloon?
If I'm right, that's because that's what we'd observe. We actually would go up there. We'd see a 90 mile an hour wind on the balloon, but my plane only has to, when it's coming from the west to the east, I am only having to counteract 88 miles per hour, even though I've got a 90
Well, I
mile an hour
mean,
wind.
it's
And then
just a
vice
small
next one
amount.
up is the other direction. All of a sudden, the wind's going 100 miles an hour that to the west, and I have to counteract 102 miles per hour.
Cool thought experiment, bro. I guess I'd have to see the data. As far
Yeah,
as I can tell, if it's affecting a plane, it's going to affect the balloon too, but maybe I'm wrong.
if I was a
Well,
flat
you're not
earther, I wouldn't
wrong,
want to
Lemon.
hear
How
all of
can you
that
even
because it's
how
too
can you even
much
conceive that you're wrong? You're
I
not
conceiving.
wrong.
mean,
Yeah.
I
I have a
could be. I
question.
don't think that I am, but I could be.
I have
If
a
a wind can
question.
move a multi-ton plane, you're asked to believe that it can't move balloons. That's sheer nonsense. That's sheer
I think you're missing. I think you're
dia-
backwards again.
dialetheism at its
Ooh,
finest.
That's not what he's
sheer like
saying.
wind
Though.
Dialatism.
shear.
We're
That's
being
no,
asked
no,
to
no.
accept contradictions. That it would move a
I,
more massive plane with more or less the same conditions, but not a small balloon. But I mean, science is a strange thing. Maybe Moyak's thought experiment has some, something I'm not seeing. I doubt it,
I,
but maybe.
I think you're I think you're backwards on it though when
It
you're
surely
trying
doesn't
to
prove anything.
understand it.
Can I cut in
I
and
mean, I
ask?
need to see the
Go ahead.
literature.
Something?
Maybe I'm missing some sort of new phenomenon that you're talking about with illusionary wind. I go to Google, nothing. I go to YouTube, nothing. So at least with the
Oh,
initial
Oh
steps
no,
of
I made
science,
that's
then
my
the
term.
church,
I
it's a
invented that.
made up
nothing.
He
term.
just
Yeah.
made
Lemon,
it
I
up.
invented that
Lemon.
terminology.
Se.
He just made that up
Can
today,
I ask a
literally.
question? Can I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Oh, huh.
Or,
It's
le-
almost
or
as if
lemon?
Noah is trying on his, alternative cosmology pants today, and he's trying to,
Okay, well then I need to see what's leading him to make up these terms.
What
Like
What would
what's
you
leading you,
call?
Boyak, to make
What would
this?
you
I
call
mean,
it if you stuck your head out a window and natural blowing starts to happen around your face? What would you call that?
I'd call that the wind.
The
you've
wind.
been blown.
Yeah, but it's not the wind. It's not the wind. It's caused by you moving through with the car.
Yeah,
So
it's
you're
True.
saying
illusionary
it's not
wind.
caused by the blowing of the wind; it's by you moving through the wind.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
something
right.
is moving
Would you
against
call that an
something.
extra type of wind, or would you add a word on to explain that it's not real wind? It's a type of
I
apparent
still say
wind.
it's the wind, just for simplicity's sake. I just say that it's not from the wind blowing against my face; it's from me moving through the wind.
Yeah,
Well, I
an
call it
illusionary
illusionary
wind.
because
Illusionary wind. That's a
I'm
quick
I'm
way to say it.
yeah, I'm calling it
No,
illusionary because I observe the real wind, measure it, we know what it is, and yet my plane is experiencing a greater amount of it, or in the case of going southbound, less of it.
Called relative.
But
Well, maybe you're going through a different portion of the
well,
wind. Maybe it's blowing
No,
a little
my
higher
wing, my
or
wings touch,
slower down,
Yeah, there's
my
no
lower at
wings
a
hit the
different
no
balloon.
elevation.
contest. Real wind and fake wind together
So
blowing
you
you.
could have two
yeah.
Natural
miles
I
blowing.
like
per
the way
hour
Don
difference
broke
from
it
one layer
down.
to another.
I like the way Don broke it down to less complication and just
Yes.
Break it
sticking your
down
head out
now.
of the plane. That just really works.
You need a term.
So
You need a term for what happens. Yeah, it's not real wind. It's a type of natural blowing that happens when you move through the atmosphere.
you're
Well,
saying
we
that it's
call it.
not real because it's not from the wind doing the blowing.
I'm
So
saying
you're
if
trying
you
to
call
say
it
that it's
Relative
wind, that
relative
distance.
doesn't fully
because
describe what
it's
it is
something
because
that's
wind
moving. You're
applies to
moving
something
because of the
else.
wind.
Wind applies to a natural thing. doesn't
I don't know
describe
if that's
the blowing that's
necessarily the
happening
case.
from you moving through
Well,
the atmosphere.
it's definitely friction, and it would be right. But what's a good word for? It seems like I don't have a
It's
problem
just the
now with
wind. I
illusionary
mean,
wind.
either you're moving through
Well,
the
it's not
wind
the
or the wind's
wind, right?
moving
Because
against
you see
you.
that.
That's it.
But like he's saying, let's just say there's a windless day. There's no wind. The balloons are still, right? And you're flying the plane. Now you get it?
What did somebody
Well,
say
there's
earlier? I
no
Stick
like
your
it.
head
wind
out the
there.
window
Either it's
and you stick
blowing
your head out the
itself or
window
you're
and you
going
feel
through it.
this wind. Right. You stick
Yeah,
your
what
head
did
out the
somebody
window and you feel this wind. It's just friction, right? But it's not the wind blowing. It's you moving through the wind.
said
So it's a
earlier?
relative.
I
Let's
didn't
take
say
one of
the
those
wind was
days.
blowing. I
Let's
said you're going through the wind.
The
You're
effect
just
is
going
the
through the
let's
wind.
same.
No, you're
That's all.
going through the air and you're creating what you feel as wind, but the wind isn't blowing. Your
See,
head is just passing through the still air, which feels like because the relativity, you're the one moving now.
It's
It
leading
feels
to
the
a
same.
similar
let's take
effect.
It
that
feels, it's
windless.
called, it feels exactly like the wind. It feels just like everything is the same, except the wind isn't actually blowing, you're moving instead.
That's
That's
not
it. That's
quite
the only difference.
true. You'd only feel it in one direction, the direction against which you're moving. You can feel the wind going with the direction that you're going or against the wind that direction that
No,
you're
in
going.
this,
So wind that's
let me, in
blowing
this
is a little
experiment,
different,
in
I
this
and
thought
that can come
experiment,
from
I
many more
changed
blowing
it.
a wind.
directions
I'm
than
happy
just
with that.
against the movement.
I
Another
changed it
type
though.
of
I
wind.
changed it to there is no blowing wind. We're in a still
Right, it's
environment
zero.
and we're flying through. There is no wind going either way now, just for the thought experiment. Now you stick your head out, you feel wind. We all know we will feel what we think is wind, but it's
Because it
really,
seems
and we would
like,
call it wind, not ever thinking about it and just treating it colloquially. I would call it wind, but I would be wrong because it's not really wind, it's air friction.
well, I think I kind of get what you're saying, that, the wind itself isn't blowing and you're talking about relativity or something like that, making us unable to tell if we're
No,
moving and or the wind is moving. But your thought experiment falls down because the wind can come from many more directions than the wind or the friction that
I'm
appears to be
measuring the wind.
generated by
I'm
moving
measuring that with the
against
balloon.
the air. So you can tell
I'm
when it's
measuring that
wind
with
or
the
not
balloon.
wind because you're going to get wind from many more
Lemon,
directions than just one
Lemon, please
direction
stop.
against
God,
the movement.
how can you guys make such
Lemon,
a
please stop.
I'm
simple
not
thing
sure
so
why you're
complicated?
fighting this. I'm not sure why you're fighting this,
You're
Lemon. Let
trying
me
to push
prove everything.
relativity basically, and I'm saying
No,
your
Yeah,
no, no,
thought
no.
experiment
this is a
fails. That's
There's
all.
no
relativity thing.
relativity,
Exactly.
fucker.
I'm
Exactly,
You're
sorry to
Lemon. This is
basically talking
relative.
about
be.
wind that blows versus friction, and us not being able to tell which one is which, basically.
I'm
It
telling
doesn't
you,
matter.
we're measuring.
You'll,
Hold on. This is my thought experiment. Fuck you all. This
Yeah,
is,
true,
I
true.
like Grim's
Put the
addition
thought
to it. We
experiment on a
added 0
treadmill.
mile per hour wind. Now we have no wind. That balloon is staying stationary over the ground. We can all see it staying stationary. My wings of my aircraft are tipping. I'm popping the balloons with my wings as I go by from the shockwave of my wings, not touching them. And I go by each one of these balloons, and I have to keep turning my wing to counteract this force, this apparent thing that's pushing me sideways, 2 miles an hour.
And
I
not
have to, in
affecting
order to
the
follow a
balloons.
straight line, I have to turn the wheel on my aircraft.
Yeah, this force is affecting the multi-ton plane, but yet you
Yes.
expect us to believe it's not affecting the balloons, correct?
Well, that's the whole thing. Is what is that force? This force is coming from something. This is theoretically this is an apparent force. We can see this 2 miles an hour. It's measurable. I'm showing you. I'm assuming my demonstration here is correct. So I'm going in a straight line due north, and I have a balloon sitting there stationary over the ground, and my plane for some reason has to turn the wheel. And you've got to explain why that is. Why am I trying to counteract
We
what
don't
appears
feel
to
the
be
need
'Hold
to
2
on, we
miles an
don't
explain
have
hour?
to
anything
explain.
because
That's
you
your
still need to
thing.
explain why it's affecting the plane but not the balloon. We could go forward in your thought experiment.
because the plane
It
is
was more
moving.
consistent thinking if you could explain why it's affecting the plane but not the balloon. Why is that?
Because the plane
Well,
is
the
moving.
explanation we have is its angular momentum.
Right, because the Earth is actually spinning. Would that be it?
Or
Which
the
side?
wind
My
is
plane
spinning
was
and
going
the Earth
1,000 miles
isn't.
an hour, and now it's going 2 miles an hour less than 1,000 miles.
Yeah, but what is
Maybe
this
the wind's
mechanism that
changing.
is affecting the plane and not the balloons? You have to explain this. You can't just say there's something that
Yeah.
it's affecting the plane and not the balloons. You can't do that.
Yeah, otherwise your thought experiment is going to be really hard to go with because it's just going to seem illogical. If it can affect a much more massive plane, for what decent reason would we be asked to think in a different way and think that it's not going to affect the less massive balloon? That just doesn't make any sense.
Because the balloons aren't moving. The balloons are staying still. The airplane is moving.
Okay, well, I reject your thought experiment because
Instead,
it's
Caden
course you do.
Times.
leading to
Of course you do,
inconsistent
Pete.
thinking, and it's a
Of course
little
you
ridiculous. But whatever,
course
maybe
you
I
do.
missed
Wait,
it.
hold on. Let's go with
Caden
what
Master
Tate
Skull, real
said.
quick.
Hold
What
on,
made
hold
you
on.
think that you repeating the same thing I've been saying and that he's been saying over and over again was going to help?
Yeah, but you're making completely irrational statements, gentlemen. Listen to what you're saying. You're saying there's a
Exactly.
force. You're saying there's a force that can affect a plane sideways, but not the balloons right next to it. That is sheer non-logical statement.
I'm not
Oh,
going to
yeah,
say it
we're,
again because I don't
Just
have any
move
yeah,
dog
we're
in the fight.
observing it.
But it's the same answer.
According to me, we're observing this. So if we're observing this, it needs explanation.
Where are we
Yeah,
observing
then
it,
which
Moya?
falls on
Give us
you,
some
sir.
examples so
Moya.
we can get on the same board with you. I mean, we can't even get on board with you because it seems so logical. What examples can you give where this happens?
I
Yeah,
do
let's
have.
start with that.
I only have verbal explanations from people who have flown planes, and they talk about the effect that we're seeing, where they see it
I think you're
over the
bullshitting. Your
over the
thought
distance,
experiment is
over
too
the duration of a
inconsistent to
trip.
follow. I think you're
Like,
full of
guys,
shit,
guys,
and
you
I
can
think you're
test
just being a
this. You
tactic.
don't have
I
to
don't
rely
trust
on
Okay,
you.
let
oil.
him talk to your
Just
fucking
picture
self.
this in your mind. Just picture a windsock and
Get
then
them,
picture
Lemon.
getting in a car and going fast.
I think you're
You
full of
don't
shit,
need
and
to
I think
rely
you're
on
trying to
Moyox
see
data.
how you can
It's
get away
literally
with just talking about verbal stuff with no example, Moyak. I think you're full of
just
shit. But if you
visualize
could give
it.
an
Good
example,
call,
please.
Lemon. Good call, brother.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah.
visualize it, guys. A windsock
Yeah, I
not
know.
blowing,
Hand
no
wave
wind,
away,
and then
Lemon.
you get in a car and go fast. Suddenly you feel wind.
Hand waving away, Lemon. Hand waving away, SC. That's good. Good job.
We're not hand waving it away. We're asking you
Sure.
for the mechanism, and you're not providing it, and we're laughing at you.
Yeah,
That's
We
what
know
we
the
do.
mechanism.
you're
The mechanism is
denying
called
that
the
going
Coriolis
fast through
effect.
the atmosphere makes a type of blowing, while balloons don't blow. You're denying like a fact that can easily happen on any model.
No, it's Coriolis effect. Sorry.
Are you kidding me? You guys can't even agree what it is. One says Coriolis, one says wind. Make up your minds.
Depends how
Coriolis is angular momentum. I'm calling it wind. It's an apparent wind. So it's to the airplane. The only thing it knows is happening is that for some reason it's
There's
deviating the
extra
wrong
or less
direction,
wind.
and it
Yeah.
is correct. You have to correct word. So
But
I
we
just
can't
call
even
I'm
it
actually
decide.
wind. You can call it whatever you want.
We can't even decide if Coriolis is a real force that actually leads to real movement and real forces, or if it's just fake and apparent visually. And if it was Coriolis, Miles Mathis goes over the problem with the Coriolis effect because it would only blow southwest. It would blow against the movement and be a movement away from the spin. You would not see a Coriolis spinning with the force of the spin. That would involve extra energy to go with the spin as opposed to against it, like the water that spins, toward the equator and away from the spin. And so
Say
it
it,
doesn't
Bob
even make
Seger.
sense. You guys are
What the
trying
fuck
to
did you just say?
shoehorn evidence of spinning and movement for the Earth that could go either way. It could just be the wind itself. It could be a charge field, like he says, since he's a globe earther. But he's saying it could be something else other than the spin of the Earth, since we appear to see spin, a Coriolis spin that goes with the general spin of the planet as opposed to against it, which is what we would normally expect. We'd expect Coriolis spin in the opposite direction, not with the spin of the Earth.
Excellent
And it
work.
could
By
be
the
a
way,
bit of both.
I had no idea what the hell you just said, but it
Why
was
do you have to
excellent.
repeat yourself like 3
Basically, we're
times?
saying the
Well,
spin in the wrong direction paid NASA shill. If it
No,
was
you're not.
Coriolis,
yeah.
the Earth is spinning toward the east or whatever, and we would see Coriolis effect in the opposite direction toward the west and south. We should not
No.
see anything spinning from Coriolis going with the Earth spin because it would need additional energy to go
That's 4
with this
times now.
spin as opposed
It
to
has
just
additional
flying
energy.
away and against it.
Exactly. It has additional energy. Very good. Now you're
Running
starting
against
to
the
get on
wind.
the.
Additional energy? If it's from Coriolis, it should just go in the opposite direction. When you spin the water ball east to west, the water goes, westward or whatever. It goes, the ball's going east, the water's going west or whatever. It's going in the opposite direction. It's not going
That's not
east with the
Coriolis.
east spin of the ball.
That's not
Okay,
Coriolis.
well, you guys are trying to use Coriolis as evidence of spin, right? So
Yes.
why are we having this direction that's going with the spin like it's picking up energy? That doesn't make sense.
Well, because it does. Because you're rotating faster in the south than you are at the north. As you go south to north, you have excess energy. You curve to the right.
It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, from
If it was
equator
just
to the north.
from a mechanical spin, the ball spinning one direction, you'd expect the water to fly in the opposite direction
No, Lemon, because
against the spin, not with it.
the water and the air have been spinning with the Earth for a long, long time. They spin with the Earth.
You came
And
in,
Miles
paid
Mathis
Master
talks about
Shield
the
just to white knight for Moyak, man.
No,
We
actually,
were talking about
I came in, Jim.
imaginary wind, paid. Would you
Oh.
care to address that?
Relative wind. That's the term. Relative wind.
We're
It
talking
is.
about mind-killing relativity.
No,
Moyak
you
tried
didn't.
to get us to join this
That's what you
ridiculous
call it.
thought experiment
You
and couldn't
stick,
give us any way to think consistently about whatever the hell he was talking about.
you stick your hand.
Rejected.
You stick
You
your
said
hand out.
relativity. I like that.
You stick your hand out a window when you're going 20 miles an hour. To you, it feels like a 20-mile-an-hour wind.
Yes.
Does it affect your hand? Does it affect
Yes.
your hand and your head?
Uh-huh. Yes.
So why doesn't it affect the balloons?
Exactly.
Only the
That's
Because the
that's the
they're not
brilliant
moving.
question.
are
There you
not
go.
They're not moving.
moving. Because the
If you
balloons
stick
aren't
a
So,
moving.
balloon in your
Professor,
Guys,
we
shoe at
asked
100
and you
miles
hold
an
said,
on a
oh,
hour,
second.
good
Hold on. You ask
question.
a
We
question,
can't
then you
really
talk. You guys
explain it.
ask a
So,
question. You ask a
Professor,
I
we're
don't know
going
if
to
You
have to
this
ask
is
a
reject the
real.
thought
question, then you
experiment.
start to talk over me. You ask a question, then you start to talk over
Hold
me.
on, guys. One at a
You can
time,
buy
I'm
as
please.
trying
much
to
time
figure out
to
why
bullshit
would
as
it
you
move the
can, but you
balloon
guys
at
really aren't
all?
Oh,
Why
answering the
come
would
on.
we?
You
question.
ask a question, then
Yeah,
you
but
start talking over me with some
You're
fucking
buying
5-minute
time,
word
but please
salad.
keep going.
because they hate your guts, dude. Seriously, if there was somebody
No,
else that
paid
could
master
just
show.
be
Please
a little more
continue. You're
polite.
obviously buying time and not really answering, but please continue.
Oh, fuck off. You ask a question, then you immediately start talking
Go.
over me.
Answer it. Go.
Let's
Everyone let him
stop being a
talk.
bitch.
Because the balloons are not
Hey, Ali, what's up,
moving.
brother?
Here we
Because
go.
the
Talk over
balloons
me.
are not moving.
It's a
Yeah,
very
the
Yes,
simple
balloons aren't the
concept.
ones moving. I thought that was simple, but
So let's
So,
it was
break
Paige,
this
funny
we
to
have
down.
me.
an
The
imaginary
wind,
wind
which should
here.
move the balloons, isn't
Relative
moving the
wind.
balloons because the balloons aren't moving. Does that sound logical as a proposition? Does that sound like that
Lemon,
makes sense?
there is Lemon.
Does
Hold
that
on a
sound
No,
second.
like
but
it's
you got to
even
Lemon,
explain it.
meaningful?
Lemon, shut the fuck up and listen for just a minute. There is no
It's just
wind.
friction, guys.
There is no wind. There is no natural wind. It is a calm ass day, perfectly calm. The car, the airplane, the whatever, the
I did
bird
this
I
that's
think
already.
flying
you're
is moving through the air. It feels a relative wind. What is
Yeah,
so
I did this
difficult
already.
about this?
That is
I
not
Okay,
got
the
that's
you.
from the
issue,
Magnus
Paige.
effect then. Let's start
Hold on,
moving at
man.
face
Lemon,
And they
speed.
still don't
please.
get it.
That
They still
is.
don't get it.
He did explain it properly. Just
Hold
again,
on. No, you're
for
mixing.
you guys.
This is not sticking your. This is not about sticking your head out and feeling something. This is about an imaginary wind in the air affecting a plane sideways, but balloons right next to it not getting affected. Do you guys understand?
Nope, that's not it. Sorry.
Yes,
That is exactly
It
it.
kind of
Ask Moyak, man.
Nope.
is it. It's kind of it, but you've got to explain why that happens because supposedly, and
I have to explain your theory, bro? No, you have to explain it. This is not how it works.
I'm actually with Essie and Lemon Bird here. You guys are in serious trouble here. Now, I can explain this the best. Maybe like we can have the same thought experiment, but we can replace the air with a wall. Now, let's say we have the plane flying to a wall, and then balloons not flying to the wall because the balloons are not moving. That's the similarity in the thought experiment. We would expect the plane and the balloons to feel the same force from the wall. Now you guys cannot explain why, if the plane flies into the wall, the balloons are not feeling the force.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, sir.
Well, they're much more elastic, number one, and number two, you have the Magnus effect. The plane is moving through the wind and having slightly different effects than the balloon moving through the wind. Perhaps the
I'd
balloon
like
moving
to
through the wind
say,
has
yeah, but
less that it disturbs, but like
refraction. You've
throwing
got
a football through the wind with a spiral and a spin, something more massive like the plane is going to be deviated by the
actually,
Magnus effect
No,
Lemon,
but
without a
you've
no,
got
Coriolis effect
refraction.
being
no.
being
Refraction.
Magnus
You
absorbed.
don't
effect.
forget refraction
The,
and
the Magnus
gravity and
effect.
stuff
there is
like
no
that.
Magnus effect
There's no Magnus effect
of a
on an
balloon.
airplane. You morons.
As long as you have
Refraction.
something moving through another medium, there could be some sort of
No.
effect of the medium on
It's
the
not moving
object.
through the
Yeah.
medium. It's moving
Guys,
with
one
the
at a
medium.
time,
It's
guys.
not moving through the medium. It's moving with the medium. It's not moving through the medium. It's moving with the medium.
Okay.
Okay,
One at a
so
time,
now
please.
the balloon is moving. If it's moving with the medium, that means that it's moving, and so is the
Well,
plane.
the medium's moving with the Earth too, is what he's saying. So
The
it's
Earth isn't
relative.
moving.
Man.
When
The
There's
Earth
no
is
wind
moving.
moves and when Earth moves, there's different friction and different forces that come out. the wind takes longer to move than like a chunk of Earth. A chunk of Earth is more massive
That's
and
if
would,
it just
move
started.
forward, while the wind would tail the moving object back in the back and be like a trail, like a comet. And so you're
Are you
asking us to
arguing both
believe that
sides,
they're moving at
Lemon?
the same rate.
That's a
No,
Are you
qualifying.